we have so much football to talk about. My week hasn't been great. I don't know. How's your week one looking?
I mean, I'm a Cowboys fan and a Browns fan, so that should tell you everything you need to know. Not good. It's funny because both those teams did exactly what they do. The Browns always suck, and the Cowboys always find a spectacular way to lose a football game. So, the NFL has really just been. I just play FanDuel now. Like I used to get so angry at the Cowboys and Browns that I would throw shit. And now I've kind of exasperated all my energy of years and years and years of frustration. So now I'm just like, it is what it is. And now I get more upset when my FanDuel team doesn't, I make my $10 to $15, So,
I can relate. Now I was known to punch things back in the high school days over college football more than the pros. And although I didn't do any damage, if I start. It is Sunday, so if I go back 7 days to last Sunday, when Notre Dame stuck the first knife in my back of the football season had barely started. It had been on for like 3 or 4 days. The NFL hadn't even started yet. And my hopes just came crashing and burning to unranked and now number 11 ranked Texas. So that was a great start.
I was just going to say there is a light at the end of that tunnel, because what happens if Texas goes on, wins the Big 12, or they go undefeated and make the playoff? That looks great under Notre Dame, that they lost by 3 points on the road. So, if they're Notre Dame, they're a national brand. If they win the rest of the games on their schedule, they'll be right there at the end. So
it was also in overtime and with a backup quarterback, but when your team doesn't have the division to fall back on, there's no division, there's no conference championship to fall back on.
They're Notre Dame, man. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, if they go undefeated for the rest of the way and Texas wins the Big 12, depending on if there are any undefeated teams, because obviously if like 3 or 4 teams go undefeated, then there's no way they're getting in, but that's not going to happen because all the teams ahead of them pretty much play each other. So, you have like a Wisconsin plays Ohio State plays Michigan State, they play Michigan, like all these teams play each other. I don't know if Oklahoma's still ranked ahead of them, but Oklahoma plays Texas in the Red River rivalry. So I think you're going to have to put on your Texas fan hat for the rest of the season at least, so that makes that Notre Dame loss look like a good one. Because just look about it this way: when Ohio State won the national championship, they lost to an unranked Virginia Tech at home. So that's all I gotta say. And doesn't Notre Dame get Stanford this year? They play them every year, don't they?
Yeah, and that's a good parallel. That's actually the same parallel was used on television, or maybe it was ESPN radio, in reference to which team that was upset in week 1 had the best chance to get back to the playoffs. And they referenced Ohio State, that it was the same instance, because also Notre Dame was playing their backup quarterback against Texas.
Right. So is Malik Zaire still hurt?
I think he got hurt again.
No.
Or I see
he got his best Tony Romo impersonation going on.
I only got to the game by the second half.
Okay.
And so by the time I got to watch it, Deshaun Kaiser was playing every down. I was told that they were splitting snaps in the beginning of the game anyway. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if Zaire just went out early or if he was trying to play through something. I didn't get to see it, but so a rough week 1. It's been a very interesting 7 days. Objectively, though, a lot of exciting football.
Yeah. Oh,
what are your thoughts on the Central Michigan upsetting Oklahoma State?
I was just gonna ask you that, man. That end of that game is one of the most insane plays I've ever seen. Like, what are the chances of that happening? Less than 0.5%, where you hit a Hail Mary and then you hit a lateral and you win the game? That's insane. But that play should have never even happened because the referees blew the call.
And that's the other part. That's ridiculous that you don't. I know it's an exception part of a rule, but the fact that you don't know it is a little mind-blowing when that's what you're out there getting paid to do. So, if it makes me want to go watch or listen to some sports conspiracy theorist, somebody who wants to talk about things being rigged or talking about some kind of bookie scenario here. It's interesting. It just, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just so happy that didn't happen to my team, but I'm an evil bastard, so I just got so happy looking at all the sad pandas in the stands of all the Oklahoma State fans crying. Like, it was fantastic. Like, first and foremost, they had no business being ranked, and then the game being that close against Central Michigan anyway. You know, it's not like Antonio Brown was on the freaking field. You know, there's just no excuse for that, but, you know, it's a bad call, and they got hosed, but at the same time, you know, they shouldn't even been in that situation in the first place. You should have just took care of business, and you don't have to worry about the referees.
Right, and that's why I want to clarify, because I want to see some crazy whack job conspiracy theory video about this game being rigged, because that was sort of the kind of I'm in line with you. It shouldn't have mattered that they got that free play.
Right.
Yes, they got it, but the Hail Mary hook and ladder, you can't let that happen. Not when you're. Especially not when you're one of the top 25 teams in the nation. So it's unfortunate that they got the extra play, but it is what it is. Players make mistakes out there. Refs make mistakes out there. They've been suspended for 2 games, so they have been punished.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It happens.
Move on.
It probably cost some people some money. But then again, like, how many people were throwing down on the Oklahoma State Central Michigan game anyway?
Oklahoma State fans, and that's pretty much it. And
yeah.
Des Bryant. So.
And, you know, all those big Central Michigan fans out there probably were hitting their bookies up.
I know,
and we'll cover the spread. No, I don't think that happened.
But, you know, there's some other interesting things that happened in college football this week. Clemson, man, the number two team. You good? Okay. Yeah. The number 2 team in the country, man, they have not looked good for now 2 straight weeks. And I really think that they are going through what Ohio State did last year, is when you have so much expectations and you have Deshaun Watson, who people have claimed to be the number 1 overall pick next year. His mind and his foot's already out the door. He's thinking about nothing but the NFL right now, and I think it's showing. And it's sad, not sad, but you know, Clemson's a hell of a team. This is the same team that rang up 40 points on a Nick Saban defense last year in the national championship. Now they're struggling to score against Auburn, and who they struggle against? It was some busted team that they couldn't. You know, they scored 20 points or so.
Troy,
yeah. You know, the fighting DeMarcus Wares. That's who they had trouble with. So, you know, they better be careful, because it bit Ohio State last year, and it could bite them this year. But they got the ACC is looking tough too. With that kid down in was that Louisville with Lamar Jackson. This kid, he was almost the first player in NCAA history to pass for 400 yards and run for 200 yards. He needed 1 more rushing yard, and he would have had it, but his coach pulled him. Bobby Petrino pulled him. So, but
another reason to hate Bobby Petrino is if he hasn't given us enough. Ooh, speaking of interesting things, wow.
Did Jimmy Garoppolo just throw an incomplete that got deflected and he caught it and ran?
Wow.
Yeah.
In an attempt to stay completely up to date for this football episode, folks, for those of you that are tuning in, we are watching the Cardinals-Pats game live, and Jimmy Garoppolo just completed a pass to himself for 3 yards. So,
so I wonder if you have him on
highlight.
fantasy. Do you get 0.3 points for that?
I believe you would. It would have to be. I mean, what about PPR?
Oh my!
What
Could
if
you
it's
imagine losing on some bullshit
full
like
point
that?
PPR and you just gave up you just got a couple of points out of Jimmy Garoppolo there for the reception and the 3-yard run. So that's interesting. And any other college football things? Well, I have one thing for you before I'm really excited. As rough as my fantasy and NFL day in general has been, I'm excited to talk about it because it's been a great week. With college football, how do you feel about these preseason rankings? Because I keep hearing the argument of let's not even make rankings until week 4 or 5 because these preseason rankings are dumb. They just create silly arguments. And have you seen some of these major jumps in the polls here?
Absolutely.
It sort of is making that argument. You've got people that are unranked now almost in the top 10 after one win, because you've got Wisconsin blowing out or putting a throbbing on a top 5 LSU team. But it's like, should LSU have really been a top 5 team?
No.
They haven't had a quarterback since Nam.
It just blows my mind. Can I get I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, get in there.
It just, LSU is so talented at every other position. How do you not win the national championship when you have Jeremy Hill, Odell Beckham, and Jarvis Landry on the same team? And it blows my mind. They cannot get a quarterback.
Has Les Miles not always had this problem?
Always.
Has he just? What is it that he's looking for in a quarterback that makes every single quarterback he recruits just
awful,
a piece of trash? And I mean, I'm sure they're all great guys. Maybe that's all he's looking for is good leaders, and they can have a noodle arm for all he cares. I don't understand. It's not like they go even with the same formula. Sometimes it's runners, sometimes it's pocket passers.
Like you go from to Russell Shepard or whatever that. He was the number 1 ranked player or athlete in the country, and they're just like, well, you're a great athlete, let's put you at quarterback, and he ended up being terrible. And then you have Zach Mettenberger, the statue standing back there, and it's just like you have no continuity. And they have a great offensive coordinator, and Cam Cameron, he's worked with NFL pros, and the excuses are just starting to run out where the guy they have now, Brandon Harris, has worked with George Whitfield, the quarterback guru. He has Cam Cameron, an ex-NFL guy. So it's not the system anymore. It's the player. We're just recruiting terrible play. Like you said, they're just like, are you a good guy? Yeah, okay, come play quarterback for me. And it blows my mind how they keep on getting receivers, elite receivers, to go there and play where they can't throw worth a damn.
I don't understand it because, let's look at Alabama, for instance. They hardly ever get top flight or great quarterbacks. I mean, they squeak some guys into the NFL. I think half the time those guys go to the NFL because they were just good game managers at Alabama, and people know they'll easily be at least a third stringer backup because
absolutely.
They went to Alabama and played with a bunch of NFL talent, and all they had to do was basically do what a backup's job would be, just come in and not screw things up.
Exactly. And, they play that pro-style offense, so those guys go into the NFL ready to play in a pro-style offense where you have these top picks, which just blows my mind how you're, taking a top pick like Jared Goff, who hasn't played under center since high school. And if you just go look, remember we've had this argument like when we originally did that where I said, name me a spread shotgun quarterback who's been successful in the NFL, and it's hard to name one,
I have one.
Alex Smith?
Well, it's Ben Roethlisberger.
Ben Roethlisberger, okay.
And I know, lucky me, know that personal experience that his high school ran the spread because it's the same high school that I went to. University of Miami, I don't know if they were... They definitely weren't what I would call a pro-style offense. I don't know that it was shotgun all the time, but for instance, he never took. Maybe not never, but our offense hadn't changed much over at Findlay High School. It's still to this day mainly 80 to 90% shotgun snaps.
Well,
so
a lot of kids.
But again,
play from shotgun, but
But I get what you're saying, and for the one Ben Roethlisberger out there, or Alex Smith, Aaron Rodgers played at Cal too, but it was a little bit of a different system back then. So, and he also got to sit behind Brett Favre for a long time. But for every one or two guys you find out there's a number of cases where it doesn't work.
Sam Bradford and Tim Tebow and Robert Griffin and this is. I'm all for if you're gonna play in a pro style NFL system, you need to play in a pro style college system to be a successful quarterback. That's not always the case, but it's just these more so of just the primarily shotgun guys. That's like I don't think that we're gonna jump ship here, but JT Barrett, for example, I do not think, and me, I'm an Ohio State guy. I love Ohio State, but I don't think JT Barrett's going to be a good NFL quarterback.
Right. Well, okay, let's use Ohio State as a reference as well because their most two recent successful quarterbacks are in the NFL as wide receivers now. So even Ohio State, okay, so they're not generating NFL-level talent at the quarterback position. They're just not. Troy Smith is the best example of somebody who had even really relative Ohio State success in the NFL, and his was not very long lived. And so, but again, they're getting out there, they're winning championships, and they're doing things offensively with the ball. How is it that LSU seems to be the one school out there? Like, even look at Georgia. Georgia is the perennial just like let down.
Right.
They're what Clemson used to be now. It feels that way for me for Georgia now, where it's like you always look up. Again, another argument I will use to go back to my original point to get rid of the preseason polls. I don't know if it's 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. Just have them play a few games before you put a top 25 out there, because like Ian, but even Georgia, they've got NFL. Look at Stafford today.
Yeah.
They've managed to get some talent.
Murray's on a roster. Yeah, I mean I agree. But getting back to the original college football point of, I 100% agree with you that these AP preseason polls, which especially now where we have the playoff system where the AP doesn't matter once the playoff poll comes out. So why do we keep on doing this? And that's how I believe the SEC got a lot of their hype and a lot of their I think that they were biased in the polls where you had so many SEC teams ranked so highly where if they beat up on each other, if suppose number 10 beat number 5, they're jumping up to number 4 for number 5, and then number 4 or 5 only drops down to 6 or 7. So they have their elite teams. Like, don't get me wrong, they had some damn good teams that won the national championship. But at the same time, it's easier for them to do that when you have so many teams ranked so highly in the beginning. And then a lot of them play soft out-of-conference schedules. So they're beating up on, little sisters of the poor. And then once they get into conference play, they're just beating up on each other. So...
Well, right, and another argument I'll make against these, because one thing I want to say about what you said was, as far as those playoff polls as well, I think those come out way too early. It sort of does the same thing that what exactly what you're saying. They come out
at like week 8 or so, and there's only 12 weeks in the season.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, man, but I still, would just save it. The one thing that is good for is just generating this dialogue,
right?
Because what ultimately matters, the week 8 playoff poll doesn't mean anything. Nothing but the last one matters. So you could make the argument, in theory, that any week before the last one it is too early. Maybe you do. I'm saying, maybe you save it for a week. Like, imagine how big of an event it would be if it was the week before conference championships.
Right.
Was the first time the playoff bracket came out, and that the whole season it was just under question.
Right.
And instead, what happens is we just get massive scrutiny of these guys for flopping back and forth, where it's like, well, you're asking them to put these rankings out. A lot can happen in 4 weeks, or stuff like that.
I agree.
So, and then the system gets put under the microscope instead of just the people in the system that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of how they do it. Period. I don't think anytime in the near future they'll do this. How do you feel about having just an 18 playoff where the Power 5 conferences gets an automatic bid? And then, that would, I don't know if you're a Notre Dame traditionalist, but, that would kind of force them to join a conference. Or, you can have you have your 5 Power 5 conference winners, and then you have 2 at-large teams, and then, 1 for the independent if Notre Dame, they go undefeated or they have 1 loss. It's kind of like how they do in the NCAA basketball, where you have a committee do that, where if you win your tournament, you're an automatic bid, right? Like if you win the Big Ten tournament, SEC tournament, you're an automatic bid. Then you have the committee vote on who should be the at-large teams. I think that would work pretty well in college football, which, that could you imagine that, man? Could you imagine the money they'd make with an 18 playoff? You would get to see I know that's a lot of extra games for college kids, but wouldn't they care about college kids anyways?
But and then also I think in general, if you just look at the money, it may end up coming out in the wash, but it may lose money, because what you end up having to do in that scenario is you have to shorten the NCAA regular season potentially by at least a week. And you're right, exactly. And that's not happening, because then I think no matter how popular these playoffs are, I think in general, when you have 120 entities that play Division I football, there's no way. I don't think you can match that revenue with a couple
the TV
extra playoff games.
Though,
but
man,
you probably
they're
could,
worth
yeah.
billions, man. Billions.
I mean,
and you know what? I think the only way this would ever happen is if, call me crazy, but what if the NCAA, like the schools just drop them? They become just a pseudo, like a amateur league for the NFL. Kind of like, there's no more NCAA. All these schools get together and say, we're going to drop the NCAA. And they just become what's the word I'm looking for? Like a semi-pro league. And you just start drafting.
like a minor league, developmental league or a minor league, yeah.
Yeah, like a minor leagues for the NFL. I mean, it sounds crazy, but, I think one day that could happen. And then maybe these players can start getting paid. And we can get my NCAA football back because that was the only sports game I played.
Catch John Brown. Oh. Yeah. So the new little update for those of you listening on Sunday night. Not near a TV. The Pats are up 17-7 on the Cardinals. Bit of a offensive struggle here going back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, with back to our NCAA talk and your question about the playoffs. I would love an 8-team playoff would be good. I like that idea of a Power 5. I'm not a traditionalist in the sense of Notre Dame. It depends on the scenario. Every year you're going to either be able to make an argument that you can find a team, at least one team that benefits from having their conference championship, and then one team that's going to not benefit because there's usually at least one upset in a conference championship game. So there's your two examples right there every year of, oh wow, now see this team gets to be in the playoffs, or back when they had the BCS, it would be a big one, like where you would lose a national title contender and then have a 2-loss team or a 3-loss team in the Fiesta Bowl, messing things up for everybody.
Right.
You don't necessarily have that as much anymore, but. And also, there are times where you've seen just the fact that two equally matched teams going in, but in that 4-5 region. But then one team has a bye week, and the other team wins a conference championship game. And who do you think is going to go to the playoffs? Right. And it's not even necessarily because one team's better. So I like that idea. I like the. I would honestly, and this would in an ideal world, and this will never happen. I wish it was 16, or maybe let's do 10. Let's call it 10, and 2 teams get a bye. Because 16, I realize that's too many extra games and too many, But that's what something like that I would like to see. So you get your Power 5, and then you get a top 5 of the independents or something like that. But you've got. Let's say if there are 2 undefeateds, they're getting buys or something like that.
And a lot of people, they're the haters of the 10 to 12 to 16 team format says it devalues the regular season, and I think not at all. I mean, look at the NFL regular season; it's still just as popular as ever, and every game really matters if you think about it in the NFL because so many times it comes down to a game here or there that decides the playoffs and not. So, I don't think it would devalue the regular season whatsoever. You win your conference,
What I would say to argue that is outside of the SEC, how many conferences have more than 2 teams that are ever a top 10 threat in the same year? To kind of to argue,
none.
I mean, I agree with you is what I'm saying. Essentially,
none, really.
You don't see it very often. You see it in the SEC almost every year. But again, I think that's because the preseason polls are junk sometimes.
Right.
And then what happens is the SEC always ends up looking good, even during their down years they appear to be great because they'll end up with 4 or 5 teams sprinkled in that top 25, and because of their preseason ranking, they then stay highly ranked even when you'll see number 22 ranked LSU team that's 3-2, and you're like, how is a 3-2 team the top 25 team in the nation? Like, come on, this is ridiculous.
Right, I agree, man.
So I agree that it's not. It's not devaluing it in my opinion. But again, I also am a realist, and I know that there's no way you could get all these teams to agree.
Yeah.
All these schools to agree to lose that
And
money.
logistically,
The only way to do it is to hope the check is big enough to and then you're paying everybody essentially, and then everybody gets paid for the playoffs every year, no matter what. And then there's always going to be some issues there.
You know what though? I do think we're going to see the playoff expanded. Maybe not in the next 5 years or so, but I bet it will be coming at some point.
Yeah, probably. This sport has progressed. College football hasn't been around that long as far as history goes, and it's seen a lot of change in how it decides its champion.
Right.
We used to not have any of this.
Yeah.
It used to just be a poll at the end of the season decided.
And that was that would be the most frustrating thing ever. So I'm glad we are where we are right now, but obviously it can get better. And an update: it's a fumble. LeGarrette Blount got punched in the face. He got punched in the face this time instead of hitting some poor guy.
Sloppy game now
Yeah.
going on Sunday night between Arizona and the Pats. The bare bones of the Pats, really. It's not a full squad they have out there.
But
They have a 10-point lead still, but this is just kind of sloppy. A close game, an exciting game. They've all been pretty exciting this week.
Yeah. Well, to start off the NFL, I hate the goddamn Patriots because literally they could throw me at quarterback and you at running back and Lou at receiver, and we'll still find a way to win the game because freaking Bill Belichick is a freaking magician. He seriously, he could have Jay Cutler as his quarterback and win the freaking Super Bowl, and that's unheard of. And you know how much I hate Jay fucking Cutler. But that dude, the system is just flawless, man. It's just plug and play, and they're still good. And I wish my teams had that. But also, my teams don't have Bill Belichick, so.
And there were people, so that to speak to what you're saying, there were people on the radio yesterday when it was announced that Gronk was going to be sat this week that were accusing Bill Belichick of, quote, knowing he had no chance to win this game and kind of quitting by not having Gronk play through a hamstring injury and just giving him an extra week off to heal.
Yeah,
so they
that's
can come
complete
back
bullshit.
And what the reality is that he just realizes that he can beat this team, that he has a game plan for every team in the league, and that there's going to be a way to win. And I'm just kind of surprised by this defense. That's what both teams have been sloppy. I mean, New England has been sloppier. They've been worse with the football. But Arizona offense just has been a little bit stagnant at the moment. They have good field position.
And it just blows my mind. Like, where do the Patriots get these guys from? Jabal Sheard was an absolute afterthought, clown, sauce for the Browns. Didn't do anything. He goes to New England. His first year, he has 8 sacks. He's in the backfield every play.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what they do, what players do. What do they put in their damn Gatorade?
I think it's the coaching staff, man. There's a reason. There's a reason all of those coaches end up getting head coaching jobs whenever they decide to leave.
Yeah.
And then some of those guys, like Josh McDaniel, have come back. So you've got guys who are former head coaches just being coordinators on your staff. I think it's the great leadership. They do have a lot of random players, but they have veterans who have been there for a long time, who know it, who can show other guys. Look at LeGarrette Blount, for instance, who cannot get it done anywhere but New England.
Yeah.
Every time he comes to New England, he does a good job. He fails everywhere else.
Yeah.
It's odd.
And I'm so envious of New England, man. They're so good, but I'm done blowing smoke up their ass. Let's get to our demise. We'll start off with our teams, and then we will go around to what happened in the rest of the NFL today.
Yeah, well, I want to start because in honor of Lou, who is not with us tonight, who I gave a shout out to the first time around. We had a little technical difficulty earlier. So Lou, if you've held on this long, brother, I apologize for the late love, but Lou is getting a much deserved night off tonight, and he'll be back later this week with another episode for us. But lose Bengals and Sean's Raiders. I want to talk about that a little. Get our other crew members' squads out of the way. They both had some really exciting finishes. The Bengals beat the Jets at home on this very important day for New Yorkers. The Bengals kind of peed in New York's Cheerios today. He kind of.
I saw it was close. I was working all day, so I was watching some of the games from that updates on ESPN.
Yes.
So you're gonna have to fill me in here, man.
Well, I had a lot of radio listening. I had a long drive home today, and I ended up taking it around the 1:00 hour. So the first games I listened to, the majority of, I had 4 of them on rotation in the car. Caught some highlights, but so the Raiders won a crazy game against the Saints in which they went for 2 and converted on a fade to Crabtree.
Mr. Krabs.
Yeah, so the Raiders, everybody's trendy pick for the AFC West.
But why not?
Won their game.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you why not, because the Chiefs also won their game against the Chargers, a game where they looked just out of sorts. Their defense is banged up right now. They're missing a lot of that defense. They came back from 21 down.
I did see that.
Alex Smith threw for 363 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns, and ran for 1. Granted, against the Chargers. Before you say it, I know you're right.
Weren't you just clowning on him a couple of weeks ago that he's the most average quarterback?
That's why I brought it up, because I was like, maybe this number 1 overall pick finally, 13 years later, is living up to his true potential.
Man.
Alex Smith, will he finally be the greatest ever?
Who knows? And of course, another guy made a freaking tongue depressors and saran wrap is Jamal Charles. Man, that guy gets hurt stepping off the bus. So, and Spencer Ware and Sarkandrick West seems like a pretty good, tandem. Imagine what they can do if Jamal Charles is actually healthy.
Spencer had a good day. The Chiefs, again, when they get that defense back, the Chargers offense looked pretty good today. They might be out of Keenan Allen though,
again?
It could be major. It looks like a knee. Whenever you see a player in the NFL take his helmet off while he's on the field and reach for that knee, it's usually not a good sign that he's playing next week.
So can Jamal Charles, Keenan Allen, and Tony Romo just, I don't know, just quit football or go play golf or something, because these dudes cannot stay on the field, man.
There needs to be a Tuesday night flag football league for all the athletes that just
can't do it.
Yeah.
Well, they would still find a way to get hurt, let's be honest.
Oh yeah, Teddy Bridgewater he can't play. He can't play flag football, not if it's on turf.
He can't even walk.
Yeah, no. But I mean, his was a non-contact injury. Tore his. That's like when you hear stories about Jerry Hughes busting his skull, falling down the steps. It's like you hear an injury about a guy in training camp, you think he got hurt in practice. You're like, no, he tripped on a dog bone walking down the steps and fractured his skull. Right. And it's like, man, that's some bad luck, but. Teddy Bridgewater is out there in shorts and tears his ACL. That's
crazy.
That's unfortunate. It's just some bad luck.
And then Minnesota just gambles their future on Sam freaking Bradford.
And isn't that bonkers? What they gave a first round pick
and a fourth. It could potentially be I think a second or third. So they got trade raped. Like Philadelphia got trade raped them. I mean. They gave up all those picks to the Browns to go ahead and get Carson Wentz, and then they just trade rape the Vikings and get their picks back. It baffles me. Why would you do that when he may not even be the starter next year? I know they said Teddy Bridgewater might not. It might take a year for him to just get back in running again. But Why would you? Come on, man.
So he's not only unfortunate in the injury itself, but he seems like he's going to have a longer recovery time than even a normal leg injury.
Would you give up a first and a potentially second or third?
Not for Sam Bradford.
Sam Bradford?
You couldn't get away with this in Madden.
No.
Okay, that's what blows my mind. If you were playing a video game right now, you would not have been able to pull off the trade that the Eagles pulled off. And then to even double down on it, Carson Wentz goes out, and yes, before you correct me, although it's your Browns, so you might not have corrected me, but you, the listener, I know it was against the Browns, okay? So I'm not trying to put Carson Wentz on any kind of pedestal here. But
they're still an NFL team.
Still an NFL team. Still a pretty good first game. Still looked better out there than Bradford to me. I guess I shouldn't say better, because I didn't get to see. All I got to see, of course, was the highlights of that game. So naturally, he looks better than Bradford when you only see the highlights.
I mean, he looked better than Dak Prescott, and all the hype was around Dak Prescott about my other team, Dak Prescott. I mean, it just looked like it was either Jason Witten or an incomplete pass. So,
well, then there's that completed one to Terrence Williams, which that is something we might as well get over with. Might as well rip that Band-Aid off now.
That is Dallas Cowboys football.
Those listening who haven't seen the end of the Cowboys-Giants game, the Cowboys had the ball, I think, around the Giants' 40 and were attempting to get into field goal range. There was 12 seconds left. Dak Prescott connects with Terrence Williams out toward the flats on the right side. Terrence catches, has an opportunity to get to the sideline and get out of bounds, but chooses instead to cut up field, tries to juke a defender, and then when he knows he's going down, instead of attempting, he at this point he was probably a good 2 yards from the sideline anyway. So don't get me wrong, he could not have made it out to the sideline, but even when he got tackled, he went further in. Mm-hmm. Like when he tried to slide the tackle, he went for that extra yard and like dove in between the two tacklers and went towards the inside of the field. And then as they were snapping the ball to spike for that last second play, so you go from a situation where the guy should have been out of bounds with 8 or 9 seconds left, providing you probably two more snaps, at least guaranteed one more.
And then kick field goal if you get any yardage.
If you get enough, because at that completion, they probably were in the mid-30s range. So one more 7 to 9 yard out route, and you're in Dan Bailey's field goal range, and you've given yourself a chance to win. And this is a seasoned vet who got a lot of time with Des Bryant out last year, a guy they heavily rely on. How we're all human, we make mistakes, but that is sad to see that. And it, what I was saying to you before we went on air, if this had happened while Romo was playing, he would have been blamed for this loss.
Absolutely. Tony Romo gets ripped on.
And hopefully Dak Prescott does not get, I know you said he didn't play a great game, but also let's keep in mind, this was his first ever NFL start with an NFL rookie running back start first time. So you got to think about miscommunication errors, how well they may or may not know the language. I thought these guys did a good job.
Okay. Let me retract. I'm not killing Dak Prescott because, one, as a Cowboy fan, yes, earlier you said the Browns are my team. They are. They're my second team, but my first team's the Cowboys. It's our team is predicated on the run game, right? But that run game only works when you have Tony Romo in the game. Yes, we still chewed up pretty good yardage last year, but at least with the threat of Tony Romo, they have to stay honest that you have Terrence Williams, you have Des Bryant. It keeps you honest. But when you don't have it, they just stack the box. And I don't care how good your offense. Yes, our offensive line is very good, but when they know it's coming, it's easier to stop. So Ezekiel Elliott had 20 carries for 50 yards.
It was a rough day.
That's a bad day because there is no imagination in their offense because I hate Jason Garrett. I don't know who I hate more, Jay Cutler or Jason Garrett. Like, they both are just terrible at what they do. This guy should have been fired years ago. It's just, come on. If I'm a guy sitting in your makeshift studio on this podcast, I can see it. These guys are NFL head coaches, NFL quarterbacks, whatnot. How can you not see this? How can you not make some kind of change in your offense to make it better, to be less predictable?
Well, what's the change then? Because I would think, now, to play devil's advocate here, because I don't care either way, aside from the fact that I have Zeke in 2 fantasy leagues. I, as a non-Cowboys fan, they say you love them or you hate them. Right. I'm just sort of indifferent. But what do you think the solution is? Because the counterpoint is, well, Romo's been out now for 2 years in a row, so that the offense, the last time it was healthy, if you think about that,
they won 14 games.
Not only did they win 12 games, they had a historic NFL season. I mean, I believe it was the only time in history where Romo, I don't know if he led in passing yards, but I forget. It was something that Romo led in a major. I heard this stat today.
I think it was
actually,
his
it
QBR
blew
was
my
the
mind.
highest. Like he had a very high QBR, but I'm telling you that works when you have Tony Romo.
Well, okay. Well, okay. So it may not be that this. So my argument is that the system may not be broken. They've been missing pieces. Last year they were missing Romo and Dez, who also was the third part of that. So you had DeMarco Murray lead the league in rushing. Dez Bryant, I believe, led the league in receiving touchdowns.
He did.
Yeah, and then you had Romo putting up. So they led in every major category.
Right.
So the offense has worked before.
It's those players are those players are just that good. The players made that. It's not like New England where you can just plug and play, and anybody will get the job done. When you have a rookie quarterback, here's what the Cowboys do: they run the ball every single time on first down. Every time they're running the ball. Don't change it. If you watch a Cowboys game, 90% of the time on first down, they run the ball, and then you set yourself up for 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7. And then obviously it's passing down so you can get closer. When you have a Tony Romo, you can get away with that because he is good enough to get you out of that and make a big throw on third down. When you have a rookie quarterback, what is a rookie quarterback's best friend? The tight end in the run game, right?
Yes.
So they knew that Jason Witten was going to get a lot of catches. They knew where he was going to go to. Dez Bryant, I didn't actually see the game, but I was watching it on my phone, and honestly, incomplete pass to Jason Witten, completion to Jason Witten. I'm like, is there? Because rookie quarterbacks do not like throwing to outside receivers for some reason, because it's a safety blanket is the tight end and the running back and checkdowns and stuff. It's just, for me, I think they should just be less predictable. Now, I'm not saying change your whole offense, spread it out there, go Patriot style. I'm just talking about the predictability of the play calling. It's terrible. They need to change something.
Well, what I think they need to do is watch some Seahawk game footage, some film tape. Maybe there's probably something they could learn from the Bills' offense. I mean, what they have now is a new dynamic that they're going to be working with for at least the next few weeks. And while you don't necessarily want to change up the whole playbook in the instance that Tony Romo can come back healthy, you want to go back to the offense that he knows that works well for him. But you have a good running back and a mobile quarterback now, and you have a running back who is familiar with taking plays and making big running plays out of the shotgun. It is much more difficult to do in the NFL, and I don't suggest it a lot. But, work in a pistol formation or something. Start working some play action. Start working some bootleg. Get him out to where, maybe he's still throwing in the flats, but it's a slot receiver that's on a slant route that he's dumping it off to. So he's starting to get that rapport and get that confidence built with his men on the outside. So I agree with you that there are new things that they can try to do to open things up for them, and whether and using that sort of pass run option with those two is, I think, a good way to do it while you're still waiting for Dak to get comfortable enough to start testing the waters on the outside.
Yeah, I agree. And, like I said, I have no qualms with Dak. I think he did as best as he could for a start, especially being a 4th-round pick where, they say that his talent level, granted he could play much better than a 4th-round pick, but they weren't expecting him to be their starter week 1. I don't even know if they were expecting him to be their second string, because their second string, Kellen Moore, got hurt in the preseason, or even before the preseason started. So, Dak did admirably. Tough day for Zeke, but it's the Cowboys, same old song, man. They're winning the game, and then we even get to the defense, who they always collapse in the 4th quarter. For some reason, they'll stay strong through 3 quarters. As soon as the 4th quarter rolls around, I don't know if they get tired, is their conditioning bad, but they give up touchdowns, not field goals. Touchdowns. It happened every game, every loss last year, besides the couple they got blown out, and it's happened. It's bit them in the butt in the past, and that's who the Cowboys are. Just like who the Browns are, they suck.
I got snake bit by not playing Eli Manning in fantasy this week. Had him on my bench for popping Bortles. Really expected some big things from Blake Bortles. It's not like he had a terrible day, but he missed out on those 3 Eli Manning touchdowns. Rough weekend in general for me. The Colts had a great comeback against the Lions at home. Andrew Luck leads a touchdown drive with 34 seconds left, and the defense opens up that umbrella, and Stafford connects on multiple big passes, and they kick a 43-yard field goal to win the game. Fantasy has been rough. I got to tell you, man, it's been I think my 2016 football season is cursed already. I've been put on auto draft in all 3 of my fantasy leagues at this point, to terrible repercussions. I have a 14-team league where you have to play 3 wide receivers, so that instantly kind of tells you how difficult it is to get a deep roster.
Right.
Well, I lose my internet connection for about a good 35, 45 minutes. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you. This is the first time it's happened to me. After filling my necessary starting lineup spots, it then started, because I had already had some players on my bench, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
It drafted, long story short, I was auto-picked 3 kickers.
How
When I
did
came
that
back,
happen?
there were 2 kickers on my bench, and I don't know how ESPN did that to me, but I'm thinking about a suit here. I'm thinking about a lawsuit because I pay money to play in this fantasy league, and the way I see it, ESPN has just rigged me out. Like, they just boned me out of that money. Granted, I lost the internet, but you're supposed to take the best available. I should have had a player queue up for the emergency, but it was late in the draft.
Yahoo, bro. Get off that ESPN crap.
Every league that I'm in, the commissioner does it on ESPN, so it's like I'm not trying to add another thing. I'm thinking about cutting one of my 3 leagues out for next year.
Yeah, I'm
going down to 2, simplifying
Yahoo,
things.
It's so much better than ESPN. I hate ESPN. I won't do it. I mean, I drafted with my family on ESPN. I'll tell you how much I don't care. I didn't even set my roster this week. Knowing that I didn't set my roster, I'm just like, I don't really care. But yeah, you need to get on Yahoo, man.
Yeah, it's tough out here. Rough fantasy week. After the games go tomorrow, we'll see if there's any update. I will be sure to be posting about that. I'm gonna give some fantasy updates on this terrible season, because for the first time I did an auction draft this year, and it's actually, so this was interesting. There's 33 roster spots.
What?
Yeah, I had to draft on top of starting 2 quarterbacks, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. You start 3 linebackers, 2 defensive linemen, 2 defensive backs, a kicker, a punter, and a head coach. You get points. You get points based on, I think, win margin. So if you lose, you get no points, and then if you win, you get a certain amount of points for the win, and then however many points.
I've never even heard of
and
that.
It's crazy, and it was an auction draft, and so the strategy is you run the price up on items you don't want, and you get people to spend money, so you have money then to buy a lot of other good players at a high. You can outbid people,
right.
And you can. So it backfires because I was trying to run the price up on Zeke. Everybody in the draft room's an Ohio State fan, and I don't expect a huge year from Zeke. My other horror story, I'll tell you how I got him in 2 of 3 leagues thanks to, here's one. I'm trying to run up the draft price on him. He's projected $74. It's at $67. I bid $68, and it stops.
Mm-hmm.
I get stuck with Zeke as my first purchase. And then I end up, again, booted off the internet for about 45 minutes. So the moral of the story is I need to pay for some more internet here soon. But I need an upgrade. But so I get put on auto bid, and by the time I get back on the internet, all of the expensive players are off the board. So I come back into the auction with $130 left. Everyone else is down to like $30, but the most expensive player on the board is worth $7.
Oh my
and we're
God.
talking like, okay, for instance, to have a weight on this, Antonio Brown was the most expensive at $80 projected. So when you're down to only $7 players, there's really not much to do. So after 4 hours of being in an auction draft and only having, I think, 12 of the 33 required spots, I quit, put it on auto bid, and that's the 1 of 3 leagues in which I actually won today.
Wow.
Last horror story, a 12-team keeper league. I drafted Todd Gurley in the 5th round last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I got him as a keeper. Couldn't get I think I had to go pick Lou up for something, and I was trying to draft on my phone, and I lost connection, and I was on auto draft in rounds 1 and 2, and it picked Zeke and Gronk.
Oh.
Were my first of all, I don't know how I got Gronk on auto pick in the 2nd round,
right.
But yeah, so it's just been a bad luck.
I have some advice for you.
What's that?
FanDuel, bro.
Well, I thought it was going to be get new internet.
No, we're getting new internet. Yeah.
That's,
what are you running? WoW?
It's AIM.
What the hell is that?
You know,
You talking about like AOL?
Yeah, we have a landline.
That shit? Oh my
Yep.
god. That 56K modem?
Yeah, it's on Netscape.
Netscape. Oh my god.
If you guys are interested in doing a fantasy league with me, you can hit me up at dirtydog@hotmail.
Oh, dude, you got to do it. You got to do the shout out before you forget.
The dirty dog. What shout out?
Your Twitter handle. You said you're gonna shout out.
Oh yeah, don't forget you can follow me on you can follow us at Bad Dinner Guests, or you can follow my personal Twitter at my boy Kev. I think that's a little fun thing I did today to make myself happy as the Colts were getting beat by the Lions.
Yeah, it's all right, man. Besides, Lou and Sean are very happy. Me and you are, we're licking our wounds today. But, dang, man. So about my fantasy team, I'm playing my buddy, and we've been talking shit all week long. And this dude trolls me. So my team name is Over the Pants Hand Job, right?
Oh, I like that.
And he wants to troll me, and he said it wrong. So his team name is Over the Hands Pan Job. And we've just been talking so much shit.
He just made a mock of your name?
That's what he did. He's like, you have a stupid name, so I'm going to make a mock of it. I'm like, okay, I can't
Oh,
wait.
just for this week? That's what he did? Or?
Yeah, he's going to change it next week. But
That's funny.
we were watching the Thursday night game together, and I have Cam Newton. And in the first half, you should have seen me where I have the Panthers defense, Cam Newton. Panthers defense were like throwing a shutout, had 2 turnovers. Cam Newton had a passing touchdown and I think a rushing one, and I'm all up in his face, right? And then the second half happened. I don't think he scored another point. But
yeah, that was a rough second half. So speaking of good fantasy names, I've got one team, my 33 roster. I don't have a name for it yet, but I want to get your feedback on. So one of these I'm not sold on yet. I think I might change it, but admittedly, I took this one from a name generator. It's I've got multiple Gorgasms in my 12 team.
Multiple Gorgasms?
I was trying to pick out of a player that I have Frank Gore in the flex. I don't know too many people that name their flex player after
That's
their
actually
team,
a good one.
And then my favorite right now is Captain America, Colin style.
Colin style?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
Nice.
Yeah, but I actually like Over the Pants Hand Job. See, last year I had a team that was called Off Constantly. So that way, if you won and somebody who in the league and you didn't know who I was, they'd be like, oh, how'd fantasy go last week? You'd be like, oh, yeah, I beat Off Constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
I beat off.
I didn't really ask about that, man, but okay.
Like every year I have 2 teams, and I have one maybe some innuendo team, and then I have like a player that I like, and like the turned down for Watt, like JJ Watt. That was a buddy of mine's team name a couple years ago. So mine this year is Netflix and Cam.
Nice. All right, Netflix and Cam. Speaking of Watt, a shout out to my friend Danielle, who had the best JJ Watt. Her fantasy football team last year was Watt Me Whip, Watt Me JJ.
That's fucking awesome. No, seriously, she wins. She won.
Well, you should. Yeah,
she won the game
give her some love on Facebook. You know her.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my favorite still to this day. Fantasy football team name I've ever heard.
Watch me whip. Watch me JJ.
Watt Me Whip. Watt Me JJ.
That's fantastic.
Best one I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well. On that note, we've got the Cardinals are making a comeback. It's the fourth quarter. It's 2014. I've got to get headed out here. I'm going to have to go to bed after this game.
Boo.
Yeah, hopefully I make it through the game. But Dijon, anything else NFL-wise that?
I mean, we didn't get to cover it, but it's okay. I just appreciate you. I know you're sleepy and you got to wake up in the morning, but I just appreciate you getting on here and letting us do a little bit of talking.
Yeah,
man.
no, I mean, yeah, if you got something else you wanna cover quickly, by all means.
Oh no, I mean, besides our teams and our buddies' teams, I don't really care about the rest of the NFL. I mean, and we talked about fantasy, so.
Oh, that's right. I cut you off on your fantasy, dude. No, you finish that first.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I did do that, and I apologize.
Oh no, you're okay.
I apologize to the listeners as well.
As I look at it right now, I had Cam Newton. Des Bryant got me 1.3 points, and he was my first overall pick. Granted, that was before the Tony Romo injury. But A.J. Green, as much as I hate the Bengals and A.J. Green, I had to take him. He got 30. My running backs are ass, bro. I have Jeremy Langford and Frank Gore as my starters.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, but Langford came in with 13 points. Gore had 10. TJ Yeldon's my flex. He got 15. Connor Barth is my kicker, got 2. Carolina's defense. The good thing is, though, I'm up by 2 points, but here's the kick. He has David Johnson going right now in the Cardinals defense. And he has the Rams defense going tomorrow, but I have Jordan Reed, so it's going to be a close finish.
Well, you better hope Jimmy Grapp starts connecting on passes to somebody besides himself.
That's why I've been looking. Every time the Patriots score, I'm like, fuck you.
Yep, there's just been field goals here lately. Yeah, so you're having a little better luck than I am. I can actually do you one better in the running back department for crap. I had to start Duke Johnson in a league this week.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's when it's rough out here.
Yeah.
That's when it's rough as the streets. But do you just have the one team this year?
That's the one team that I set my lineup for because
Okay.
I told you the rest of my teams are on ESPN.
Gotcha.
And I don't really care. So, and I'm an avid FanDuel player. So I just blew $50 today, unfortunately.
Hey, well, I love having you on, and hopefully we'll get some. We're probably gonna get someone from FanDuel to talk to us about an AdSense or something.
We should start doing. We should start maybe trying to do like a fantasy. If we can remember or get the time to. Maybe throw out a little fantasy podcast out there of like before Sunday of who do you like, who do you hate, and then also who do you like on FanDuel and DraftKings because that's really where the fantasy is going to with this DFS. So I don't even research who to play in my yearly leagues anymore. And is that David Johnson?
That's not good for you.
No,
David Johnson with the long run.
Okay, I need to stop watching football. I'm just getting frustrated.
Yep.
I look at a lot of who to play on FanDuel. So maybe if we can get some time. We can, or at least you guys down here can do it.
No, hey,
and I'll be listening to that shit. So.
Let's work on that. We'll try to make that happen. Lou is playing fantasy this year. We'll have a bunch of different things to look into. So we'll let you guys know when we come up with a way to do that, and we can have people tweet us
Kevs
questions
at Yacht Club Kev or at Dirty Dog Massing's Fantasy Roadshow.
It's at Bad Dinner Guest
Bitches.
or at my boy Kev.
At
You guys are gonna never tag me in anything ever again. And with that in mind,
peace everybody.
Good night. We'll talk to you again soon.
Everybody.